And welcome back. So you can see we're on our 2012 Ram at this point, and what we're actually in the process of doing is seeing if we can get this old girl, which had been kind of sleeping here throughout the summer while we were working on the 2009, see if we can at least get it pulled up in here a bit more of on a concrete area, so we can start assessing what we need to do with this particular truck. And we're just kind of going through and, you know, airing the tires and everything back up. Now, we borrowed some parts off of this truck, as you remember, and we're just putting those parts back on, such as the fuel rail and items of that nature. We're just in the process of getting those reinstalled so we can get this truck started and get it out of here. This truck did start. It did run and drive when we parked it here, and it's, again, hasn't been doing much since we parked it. So it should start back up and move out of here with hopefully relatively zero issue. But like I said, we'll see. But this is going to be part of just, again, we just need to get it out of here, get it in an area that we can work on it to do the assessment on it. And then we'll go from there as far as eventually, once we get it a little bit more cleaned up than what it is now, we'll get it into the garage and start taking a look at the underbelly and such and kind of seeing what we got to work with. But I'm going to continue to work on this, and I'll bring you back. Thank you much. Okay, welcome back. So just to show you what we're doing here, you can see this is one of the reasons why we want to get this cleaned up. When this came in from auction, the state that it came from, it came in with all this really fine just dust or dirt/dust. It's just, my understanding is pretty common for the state that it came from. It just gets everywhere, and you can see it's made kind of a mess. So one of the things we want to do is, when we get it pulled around to the side, is just go through and see if we can, you know, not drench it totally with water, but see if we can at least spray some of this dirt off and then give it a good couple days of dry before we get it in the garage. But to show you what we replaced was that we had to put the coil back on here to the #1 cylinder, because we borrowed it when we were testing the 2009. We bolted the fuel rail back down. Now, this fuel rail wasn't open and the engine wasn't exposed this entire time. We did have this pushed in place as a preventative measure, but I did put the bolts back in to finally secure it. Now, remember, this is the fuel rail off the 09. We changed this part completely out when we rebuilt the 2012 when we were testing, but all the fuel injectors on that prior to us taking it off of the 09, they all clicked, and I think there are 2 replacement fuel injectors in this rail, so it should be fine. Either way, we'll find out soon enough. So we got that taken care of. We got the coil packed back in. We should be able to go ahead and give this thing some juice, see if we got some battery power in it, and get it started. And yes, all the tires miraculously held air, and they're still holding air. And now that it's been rained on, it's pretty much been sitting here in this one spot the entire summer. But you know, exterior wise, yeah, it's got some dents and dings from some hail damage, and you can see a rust spot starting right there where it got bent down and caused the paint to crack, but that's easily fixed. Matter of fact, we may be able to get the light out of this fender and come up underneath here with just like a rubber mallet, probably pound that ding out, and just hit this with a little bit of paint to keep it from rusting any further. I mean, but other than that, exterior wise, it's a pretty solid, nice looking little truck. The interior needs some work, but one of the items we're looking at on the interior right now to potentially do to this is to get a hold of a wrecked 1500 with a better interior, and see if we can just go ahead and just change all the seats and everything out to, again, whatever donor 1500 that we can get, because we're looking for, obviously, a donor 1500 that has a way better, cleaner interior than this one. But if the outside's trashed on the donor, again, we don't care. We just want the internal front buckets, rear bench, and possibly some of the door panels, depending. I mean, these door panels look good, and they look like they'll clean up without an issue. But I mean, it's not too terrible. We could go through and clean up all the fabric on this one. Again, the fabric on this one of the interior is a little bit worse for wear than what the 2009 we worked on was, which is why, again, we're just kind of looking for maybe a donor 1500 that we can get get a used interior from, and then potentially just pull the carpets out of this and either put rubberized floor matting in lieu of carpet, or just go ahead and get a replacement carpet and roll that out. But either way, let's get some battery power to this. We're going to see if we can get it started, and we're going to at least get it pulled out of here where it's kind of been, again, sitting the majority of all last summer, kind of in slumber. I'll bring you back in a bit. Bye. So welcome back. Sorry, gotta talk over the engine noise. Yeah. You can hear some growling going on. It's either a vacuum leak or some dirt in the water pump. That's what we want to do. We just want to clean this up first before we get this pulled into the garage and start to take a look at everything. Yeah, dirt and filth everywhere, unfortunately. But you can see what they did, what they've done here. And this came this way from the auction. This is what we knew about. But let me go shut this off so I don't have to talk over the motor. But I mean, she's running fine. I'll throw a scan tool on it here in a couple minutes and we'll go through it, and you can kind of see what's being logged for trouble codes. So far, it's obviously complaining about the TPMS system. It looks like all 4 TPMS sensors are bad, but that's to be expected with this age. It's complaining about the squib for one of the items on the passenger side, so that'll have to be addressed. But it's not complaining about you know, cut 8, at least on this one we don't have a bunch of cut ABS wheel speed sensors and things of that nature. But let me show you what's going on here. This is a pretty common fault with a TPM and a certain range year of Ram trucks, in that the fuel pump relay, which is integrated into the TPM, will go bad. And you can see what they did here is they put a bypass cable. Well, they call these bypass cables, but what they are, they're these fuse taps you've seen before, where you can run in a secondary circuit off an existing fuse. And what they're doing is they're feeding power, 12-volt power, from another keyed ignition source, which happens to be over here, which I believe on this particular Ram is one of the 12-volt powered outlets in the inside the cab. That basically, what I guess what I'm saying is this power point right here only has power when the key's the ignition, and they're feeding the power side of what it would normally be the power side, where the relay would send power to the fuel pump, and they're basically just bypassing that internal relay on this TPM by using this bypass cable to do so. So it'll be an item that we'll have to address. These are kind of only a temporary fix. I've seen where individuals have run these for a long period of time and they eventually end up just completely outright failing for, you know, other reasons. Now the proper fix is that Chrysler actually has a bypass harness, a fuel pump relay bypass harness that they sell for the Jeeps and such. I'm going to see if I can get that same kit and we can actually use that same kit on a Ram. It's just the instructions for the wiring and the pinout will be a little different. We can either do that, or we can get our own relay and just take the signal wire that would normally close the relay on the internal one that's broken, run that to our own external relay and fix it that way. Either way, I guess what I'm saying is we've got a bad fuel pump relay in the TPM that we need to address. And yes, you can actually take these TPMs apart if you have the right soldering equipment and the right parts to do so, and replace that on-circuit relay. But you really need to have the right soldering equipment and kind of know what you're dealing with there. Otherwise, you could damage this TPM altogether. And this is like, I think it's like $1,200 to, you know, get a whole new one of these. So with that being said, you can see here, obviously, as we were talking about, we've got it up on some concrete so we can start kind of looking at it and cleaning it. And I think the first thing I want to do is, obviously I won't spray it on any of the electronics, things of that nature, but at least want to get in here and try to get some of the dirt off of this motor before we get it inside. Again, you heard what to me sounded like maybe a vacuum leak, or it's just one or multiple of these pulleys has probably got dirt in it, and it's sounding pretty grindy as it's going. Oh, let's see here. So let's take a quick look at the inside. You may remember some of this from the initial video we done on this, but again, typical driver's seat, sidewall blowout, as what happens with pretty much any vehicle, whether it's a truck or not, just because of the activity on the seat. And you can kind of see the carpet itself. Now, when we first got this Ram, the rear window that you see there was actually not in it, and it was laying in the back seat. The first thing we did when this truck was dropped off last year was to have Safe Light come in and put a whole new window in to stop it from continuously getting rained on, which is the reason why we really just kind of want to pull up the carpet, get rid of the carpet, replace any padding, and kind of go from there. Potentially, if we can find like I said, a donor Ram to deal with, potentially just go through and maybe either replace the interior altogether, or take the seats down to an upholstery shop and just have them reupholstered it in some nice new fabric for us. Other than that, I mean, yeah, it's got some dirt on it. It's got some wear and tear items here and there. I mean, other than that, it's not a bad little Ram at all, considering where it came from and considering its age. Like I said, a lot of it's just going to be a little bit of engine work that we got planned for it, and a lot of interior cleaning and fixing that fuel pump relay. And the last one of the other things that we'll need to do is that we're going to want to put some decent tires on this. These tires are pretty well spanked. They're holding air for now, but they will leak down over time. And we've also got, of course, like I said, you can see it's a basic SLT trim level. You can tell that the whole door panel is plastic, which again, it's fine. It doesn't need to be anything on the luxury side for either what we're going to use with it, or if we elect just to turn it into another donor, then it doesn't need to have leather trim door panels, I guess is what I'm saying. And this is what we were looking at earlier. That's that dent you see there, that we should be able to get that out fairly easy. This hub on this side, I think I may have covered this on the initial video that we did for this Ram. Whoever put the tire on this from I don't know if it was done at the auction place or who did it, but when this arrived, obviously this is not the tire for this side. It's the same bolt pattern, but it's not the tire that should be on here. They actually gave me this tire, but when they dropped the truck off, this tire was completely just shredded, flat, destroyed, wasn't going to hold air. And in order to get this off, whoever put the original rim on here stripped out 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 5 lugs. This one will go on tight. This one will go on tight, actually. This one will kind of cinch up, but it won't tighten, and these 3 here are just destroyed. So it's kind of being held on by 1, maybe 1.5 lug nuts on this side. So at a minimum, we'll have to replace the bearing hub on this side, as well as any other, obviously suspension issues that we may run into when we get down there. But other than this hit, you see here, and some hail damage, which I'll show you on the top hood here. It's a pretty straightforward vehicle. Yeah, it's got some scratches in it, it's got some dings in it, but judging by the bed, she looks like she was a work truck in her previous life, but that's fine. If we choose to do so, there's an easy way we can address this bed. We could just take it down and get it Linexed, which means they'll sand it all down to bare metal for us, and then they'll just spray it, and that'll protect the bed from pretty much that point forward. Yeah, you can see we got some standing water in this tarp, and you get this tarp out of here, kind of let this start draining off. letting us dry up from where it's been sitting. But let me go do that next. Let me go get a scan tool. We'll run a scan tool on this real quick and I'll bring it right back. And welcome back. So I got you plugged in here. In case you're curious, we're 112,680 miles on this old girl. And you can see the message about the tire pressure system. It's not reading any of the TPMS sensors, but again, doesn't surprise me. So we want to go into local diagnosis. And we want to go into Dodge. And then we'll do a quick system scan here. Now, you got to keep in mind that I did have the battery unplugged on this while it sat up. So if it had any stored codes, those have unfortunately since been lost. But it, like I said, it does, like I said, it does start and run and drive. So let's do a, I'm in the wrong area. 16-pin connector, automatically search. See if it'll find the VIN number, which it should, because I did look at this earlier. So there we go. We got a 2012 Ram 1500 with another 5.7. And then we're just going to do a health report. And I already had the key in the ignition, obviously, and the dongle plugged in. And you can see it's finding some faults. Some of these faults may be low battery voltage. It did have a bit of a rough start while it was building fuel pressure and putting fuel pressure back in the rail. But we'll take a look at what we got going on here. Okay. Now, fuel system lean, bank 1 and bank 2, pending, and cylinder 8 misfire. Again, it didn't have any fuel in it. It did have kind of a rough start getting going, so that's more than likely just the results of it, again, happening to fill the fuel rail up with pressure. And of course, it sat all summer, so I'm not concerned with that just yet. And we've got, let's see, ABS module. Those are stored codes, so we're not going to worry about those. Right side seatbelt squib, that was the squib I was telling you about earlier. It has an issue with the passenger front seat belt. More stored codes, sorry. And this is more than likely just when it lost battery power. Again, more stored, fog, lamp switch circuit stuck, stored. And we got a bunch of actives here, but you'll notice they are all for TPMS. Yeah, tire pressure, all that's tire pressure. Those are active. That's to be expected. More stored. And again, ECU reset occurred. Stored. Okay, so there's only a couple active codes, as you saw, on this one, which is TPMS. Most of it's TPMS. We got an active code for the, again, that front passenger seat belt. And those are pending. I expect those will go away once it's had a bit more time to run, had some fresh fuel in it, got a good cleanup, and some, like I said, by fresh fuel I mean decent fuel, stuff that hasn't been sitting around for at least a year, and those should clear up on the zone. So so as you can see, not near the amount of internal trouble codes that we saw on the 2009 in reference to door modules, blend door actuators, things of that nature. Another thing to keep in mind is that again, we're dealing with an SLT trim level, so it doesn't have the turn signals or puddle lights or any of that fun stuff in the mirrors, although it can be added to this truck. You would have to get the newer side mirrors, the newer door control module, and you'd have to do some programming onto the truck itself. So other than that, hopefully that gives you an idea, let you know that we've started progress on this. And as you can see, it's just going to need a lot of cleanup. Once we get the cleanup done, we get it looking fair better than what it does now, then we'll get it into the garage on the lift, so we can kind of work on this and not be, depending on good weather and things of that nature as we were with the last one. Again, this one does run and drive. You heard it earlier. albeit it definitely needs some work done to it. If you go back and you'll hear it run, you kind of hear what sounded like a bit of a vacuum leak and or a little bit of a growl coming from a couple of those front pulleys. But anyway, I'm rambling. But with that being said, if you have not subscribed, please consider doing so. Again, trying to continue the momentum and growing this channel into 2023. And if you have not subscribed, please please consider to do so. And thank you for everybody that has thus far. This should be another interesting adventure. We've got two options right now that we're looking for. This rig is either going to be something that we are going to rebuild and redo, and again, like we talked about earlier, turn it into a track truck. Again, not something that's going to go to track and necessarily break records, but something that maybe you can take to a day at the track, have a lot of fun with it, and at the end of the day, still street legal and able to drive it home. Or if we find another family that is in need of a nice daily driver that will definitely get you from point A to point B, then we'll fix it up just like we did the 2009, and we'll proceed down that route with it. So those are kind of the options we're looking at right now. And with that being said, I'll bring you back for the next one. Thank you much.